And welcome back to the finale here of Hoopsville on this special Thursday night edition of a pre-taped show. We apologize we cannot be live. I know a lot of you enjoy it when we are live because we can interact with you live. We apologize for that. We will hopefully be back live next week from the Hoopsville studios. The following week, we're planning to be in Salem, Virginia for the annual Stag Bowl and Gallardi Trophy and all that jazz. I always like the thought of maybe doing a Hoopsville while we are there, but I will freely admit it is not an easy venture considering most of my gear that do Hoopsville is taken up with the football elements. I will say this much. If we can do one, we will put some interviews together at least. If we cannot, we will be back on the air, at least from the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas, starting on December 27th. There is, let's see, there's 22 teams there, I think, in men's and women's basketball, because we will be playing 3 games on the 27th, 6 games on the 28th, 6 games on the 29th, and 3 games on the 20th. Gordon Mann, myself, and Pat Coleman will be there amongst other crew, so we hope you'll tune in. We'll have special kind of like Hoopsville vignettes, kind of like we did at the Hoopsville Classic. We'll have those little vignettes there throughout the weekend or throughout the week in Las Vegas. Speaking of the Hoopsville Classic vignettes, I apparently did not upload them all, and I apologize to anybody who may have been looking for them. So those are being uploaded and will be available if you want to listen to any of the coaches who were involved there. We did miss out on one, Coach Chris Graves. Well, let's see if we can talk to him maybe next week about his team here on Hoopsville. But you can watch those interviews as well on our YouTube page, and we've also tweeted them out and all that fun stuff. So if we don't see you on the air right before Christmas, and you don't check us out at the D3 Hoops Classic, we will start back up our normal Sunday and Thursday schedule January 5th. I know we're talking on December 5th, but January 5th will be the next time, and that will be when we get on the air for our real 2-day-a-week type stuff and really get into the nitty-gritty. We're also working on a special maybe 12-hour show, believe it or not. I'm not kidding you. Maybe looking at trying to do a 12-hour show. Details in the works. Stay tuned to us. Follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville, of course, on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. One other part of business, I will be in my 19th season announcing games at Goucher College for my alma mater in men's basketball. I certainly enjoy doing it. But this Saturday is a very important game. If you happen to be in the Baltimore area, and even if you're not, you should know that this will be the second annual fundraiser for a former basketball player at Goucher. You may remember the horrific injury back in April 2012 that left him paralyzed. We're talking about Damon Brooks here. They will have a fundraiser. Damon Brooks is apparently planning to attend the event once again. Last year they played Johns Hopkins as a fundraiser, raised about $5,000. This year they'll play Merchant Marine in the first of a doubleheader in Landmark Conference play. They're going to have a silent auction. They're going to have all kinds of great things to try and raise money. If you're going, everybody who goes in, even students, everybody who goes to this game will be charged admission. That money is going towards the Help Hope Live website and foundation to help Damon Brooks in his recovery from this paralysis and, of course, get him equipment that he so badly needs. If you cannot go, you can't participate in the silent auction, et cetera, you can still go to the Help Hope Live website. Go to the Goucher's website, athletics.goucher.edu, for more information on how you can contribute to helping Damon Brooks recover and maybe get the supplies that he needs, whether it be wheelchairs or other items that they need to help Damon may live as comfortable a life as he possibly can. Now time for a Hoopsville rant, and if you don't mind, I'm going to do this a little bit off the cuff, but I'm going to do about something I've been talking about quite often, and this has to do with the new rules, and they're not really new rules in men's and women's basketball game. Yes, we have the new 10-second violation that the women now have, but that's really not something we're adjusting to. On the men's side and the women's side, the one emphasis that has changed is they want hand checks called. Believe it or not, hand check is a rule in the rule book that has basically gone semi-ignored for a number of years. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because teams got more and more aggressive on defense and have started to hand check more that the refs, I can only call so many of these. I'm going to wait for the most egregious act. And how that egregious act became more and more egregious, I don't know. But we had less and less hand checking getting called. Probably to the detriment of the game, because let's be honest, the hand checking stopped being called, and so more physical play came into being, period. So the more bodies are banging each other, more contacts being allowed. And let's be honest, basketball is supposed to be a non-contact sport. Yes, there's always some contact, but for the most part, defense is not a contact sport. You shouldn't be grabbing guys. You shouldn't be holding guys. You shouldn't be trying to keep a guy from getting to a position because you happen to be able to get a hand on a jersey and the ref's not willing to call it. Or you're going to keep a guy from driving the paint because he beat you, but you're able to get at least a little bit of body on him that just happened to be incidental contact. The other rule that's in place, of course, is also that the guy who's trying to take a charge has to be outside the arc and has to be planted before the basketball player who has the ball in his hand has committed to making a decision. So in other words, not when the guy's a step away from you, but when the guy actually picks up his dribble, you better be in position. I haven't seen too many problems with that. I've seen more offensive charges being called, but I've also seen more defensive blocks that would have been offensive charges in the past called. I like it. Players are figuring it out. They haven't figured out hand checking. Now, some of the games I've seen, a lot of the games I've seen, and I've already seen a ton of games this season, the hand check's being figured out. Players are understanding that refs are calling it, and refs are not afraid to blow the whistle. In one game in particular, I vividly remember a hand check being called on the far side that in years past probably wouldn't have been called, but it by definition of the rule was a hand check. The player was coming from a help position, ball got skipped over to the offensive player, the defensive player got there a half a step late, offensive player was driving to the lane, the defensive player just got enough of a body and enough of an arm on him to just disrupt him, and that was called. I was waiting to hear what the coach had to say. Believe it or not, the coach didn't go after the refs. He went after his player, basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, you know the rule, you know they're going to call it, get in position, stop it, don't hand check. That's basically what he said. He wasn't angry at the officials for calling it, because guess what? By definition, it is the call. He was telling his player, and this was late in the game, figure it out. The other thing I heard then from the stands right behind me was, hey, refs, let them play. I found this a little bit ironic. Let them play. The problem is the new rule, or I should say the new emphasis on a rule that already stands, is so that they will play, that they will let them play. The whole idea of this extra hand checking, this extra grabbing, this extra physicality by a defense is keeping the offense from playing. Do you see my point? This isn't about letting the defense play. This is about letting the offense actually play without the worry of being hand checked, without the worry of being grabbed, without the worry. It's slowing the game down. It's not only slowing the game down, but we've seen some of the lowest scoring in decades in the college game. There are other ways to fix it. We'll mention those in a minute. But one of the biggest ones was keeping offensive players from allowing the advantage that they have gained. So let them play. Let them play means call that foul. Yeah, I know. There are some people who are complaining mightily that they are seeing more fouls and more free throws, and it's slowing down the game. I get it. We all knew when this emphasis went into place, that we were going to see more fouls. We were going to see more free throws, especially early in the season. But let's stop, and this is what I'm seeing a lot of. Let's stop telling the officials in the NCAA that this is a dumb idea. Because guess what? It's not a dumb idea. Do we want to go back to 50-point games where it's physical as possible and it's not really basketball? No. Let's go back to 70-point games or 80-point games. And it's great offense. And the defense actually has to play defense with their feet. Here's the problem. The refs are calling it. Don't blame the refs in the NCAA for calling it. Blame the players. Blame the teams, and maybe blame the coaches for not telling these guys to adjust. One of the interesting things is that I hear the argument that, well, the refs are inconsistent. Tell me a time the refs have never been inconsistent. We all see a strike zone that's different depending on which umpire is behind the plate. We see a pass interference called differently in all levels based on the referees. Are you kidding? In the NFL, they actually have guys who scout the refs to find out how much pass interference will or will not be called. It's always different. It's always subjective. You know, as a player, in the first 2 to 5 minutes of a game, how the refs are going to call it. Yes, the refs might adjust accordingly. They might call something early, they don't call late, or they call something late, they didn't call early. But it's not every call. It's not every trip down the court. It's not everything. It's just occasional stuff. You know as a player, you know as a team, you know as a coach what they are going to call. You understand the emphasis. The emphasis has been drilled into these teams in the offseason for many times. Don't blame the refs. Don't blame the NCAA. Figure it out. Adjust your game to the calls. Adjust your game to the fact that hand checking's being called. Move your feet. Stop grabbing. Guess what will happen when this happens? When teams finally figure out how to adjust. When teams start figuring out how to adjust. And those who haven't figured it out. I've seen teams adjust, by the way. I've seen it happen. You know what you're going to see? You're going to see actually more offense, faster game, better scores, and less fouls. Huh? Yeah. Because defense will get in position, and they won't be rewarded for lazy defense. Defense isn't about grabbing with a hand, about hand checking a guy and pushing him from where he wants to go. Defense is about getting your feet in position. It's true in soccer. It's true in football. It's true in basketball. It's true in everything's about your feet. Get your feet in position. There isn't a sport where you play defense where your feet aren't important. And your feet aren't the most important part about playing that defense. Move your feet. Get in position. Stop blaming the referees. I like how this is now an emphasis. Does it stink that more calls are being made? Yes. Does it stink that we're going to the free throw line more often in some cases? Yes. But figure it out on the court. The players need to figure it out on the court. Again, I've seen it figured out. It works. Saw 10 games at the Hoopsville Classic, and I agree with one of my color commentators, Jeff Gamber. With all the hand checking that was called, only one game did it seem like too many calls were made. 1 out of 10. And by the way, we saw not one repeat referee in any of those 10 games, which, by the way, is something significant in the Mid-Atlantic. We didn't see one referee who worked in the second game at the Hoopsville Classic. And yet we only had one game where there were too many fouls. Interesting. So figure it out. The hand check rule is here. It's being emphasized this season. That's not going to change. You have to change your defense. And that's my Hoopsville rant. We'll hopefully be live again next week. I certainly am looking forward to it. We'll hopefully have more Hoopsville rants as well. Look for my blog as to where I put the top 25 this week on my ballot. Remember, I'm just one of 25 voters. And look for more guests down the road. Don't forget, interact with us at Twitter, at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Really emphasize the hashtag part, Hoopsville. Facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. And of course, on email, Hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. I want to thank all of my guests, Brad Duckworth at Alverno, Tim Bowden's head coach. I'm sorry, blanked on the name here as I ad-libbed this. Also, Ron Rose at Illinois Wesleyan. Brian Donahue at Kings, and good luck to him and best of luck to him. I suspect he's going to beat this, and we certainly look forward to seeing him officially say he has beaten his brain cancer. And I am forgetting somebody, and I'm going to remember it here as I stall. Oh, yes, Michelle Ferentz at Whitman. Thank you to all of our coaches who come on the show, and, of course, our SIDs for helping us out. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We appreciate it. We'll see you back here on Thursday, hopefully live. And if you have any thoughts, convey them with us. Thanks for watching Hoopsville. We'll see you later.